In 1859, the San Juan Islands were a rugged, isolated stretch of frontier where the boundaries of the American and British empires collided. 13 years earlier, the Oregon Treaty of 1846 attempted to formalize peace in the region. It divided the territory by drawing a borderline down the middle of the channel, separating Vancouver Island from the mainland. But that phrasing contained a critical flaw. This map of the Pacific Northwest shows the problem. The treaty line travels down the 49th parallel, but when it hits the water, the geography splits. The Americans claimed the border ran west through Harrow Strait. The British claimed it ran east down Rosario Strait. Both nations claimed the San Juan Islands sitting right in the middle. This was highly valuable real estate. Any military force occupying this specific landmass could mount artillery, command the choke point, and blockade all naval access between the Strait of Juan de Fuca and the Strait of Georgia. A simple cartographic oversight had produced a strategic vacuum. A heavily contested patch of ground sat waiting for a local dispute to ignite a wider crisis. On the ground, the two empires lived shoulder to shoulder. The British Hudson's Bay Company operated a large sheep ranch on the island, while a steady influx of American settlers arrived as squatters to stake out their own land. On June 15, 1859, an American farmer named Lyman Cutler woke to find a large black pig rooting in his potato patch. Tired of the animal destroying his crops, Cutler grabbed his rifle and shot it dead. The pig belonged to the British ranch. Cutler offered $10 in compensation. The British owner demanded $100. When they failed to reach an agreement, British authorities threatened to arrest the American farmer. In response, local American settlers formally requested protection from the United States Army. Because neither side recognized the other's legal authority, there was no neutral police force to mediate. A destroyed garden immediately escalated into a standoff over national sovereignty. The U.S. Military Department of Oregon reacted aggressively. They dispatched Captain George Pickett and 66 soldiers to the island with orders to block any British authorities from landing. Pickett arrived and deliberately escalated the tension. He ordered an artillery redoubt built on a high ridge overlooking the bay, and publicly declared that if the British attacked, he would make a Bunker Hill of it. The governor of the British colony countered by sending Royal Navy warships under the command of Captain Geoffrey Hornby, anchoring them immediately offshore to check the American advance. This diagram shows the massive force disparity that accumulated over the next few weeks. By August, the Americans had reinforced their position to 461 troops and 14 cannons. The British opposed them with over 2,000 combatants and 5 warships mounting 70 heavy guns. The proximity amplified the psychological pressure. The small American earthworks were completely enveloped by the firing range of the anchored British fleet. Lower-level officers had locked themselves into a rigid posture. Any concession now meant national humiliation, leaving both sides with no obvious exit short of opening fire. The breaking point arrived when British Governor James Douglas issued formal orders. He instructed Captain Hornby to land his Marines and dislodge the American troops. The fleet sat in the bay, cannons loaded. But Hornby delayed the landing, waiting for his superior to arrive. Rear Admiral Robert L. Baines soon reached the island and independently assessed the tactical layout and the severe political stakes of the standoff. Evaluating the situation, Baines explicitly refused to follow the governor's order. He stated plainly that he would not involve two great nations in a war over a squabble about a pig. Baines broke the chain of command, choosing to absorb a perceived political insult rather than authorize a slaughter. When reports of the crisis finally reached Washington, D.C. weeks later, officials were horrified. President James Buchanan was struggling to manage the deep sectional divisions that would soon trigger the American Civil War, making a conflict with Britain a severe liability. Buchanan dispatched General-in-Chief Winfield Scott to the Pacific Northwest to negotiate a stand-down. Scott brokered a mutual de-escalation, reducing both sides to a token joint occupation of no more than 100 men each. The tense military standoff quickly dissolved into a 12-year joint occupation. The small British and American garrisons lived peacefully on opposite ends of the island, frequently visiting each other's camps to share rations, compete in athletic games, and celebrate national holidays. By institutionalizing the conflict into a tedious daily routine, the soldiers on the ground bought their governments the time needed to negotiate a long-term solution. In 1871, the United Kingdom and the United States signed the Treaty of Washington. They agreed to submit the San Juan boundary dispute to an objective third party for international arbitration, selecting German Emperor Wilhelm I to make the final call. This map shows the outcome of that arbitration. In 1872, the Commission ruled in favor of the American claim, drawing the final marine boundary down Harrow Strait, to the west of the islands. Within a month, the British peacefully withdrew their Royal Marines. The American forces followed suit, leaving the island completely demilitarized by 1874. Today, the site is a National Historical Park. It remains one of the few places without diplomatic status where U.S. government employees regularly hoist a foreign flag, flying the Union Jack over the former British camp for commemorative purposes. The legacy of the Pig War lies in how it ended. It proves that even when standing at the edge of a major armed conflict, geopolitical standoffs can be diffused when leaders make the active choice to prioritize diplomatic patience over military pride.